Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It's time to have a look at the Warbond shop, which has come in for the next season of the Battle Pass, good old Northern King. And the Warbond shop itself is actually looking pretty good. And there are a lot of good premium vehicles here, even though they haven't increased in rank since the last time. Pretty much all of them have a use, which is kind of cool. They also have the Gemini, good old pin-up in. Now remember, it looks like they might be putting in some kind of Zodiac collection setup, so don't be surprised if we see that pretty soon. It isn't in the game yet, but we'll see what kind of goes on with it. So, let's go through the Warbond shop, my general thoughts about it, and also what the nice offers are. You do have 7 days left on the previous Warbond shop, so if you want to pick it up, make sure to do so. On this new Warbond shop, they have access to the good old camouflages, so if you want to get those, make sure to do. And remember, when it comes to camouflages, once you get them, you can put them on any vehicle in an unlimited way. So basically once every vehicle. So make sure to get it so you can put it on everything. You don't have to purchase it individually for each vehicle. Instead, once you get it, you can use it anywhere you want. It's really cool, which is why I always advise to pick up the branches so you can use it on everything. Now, looking at the test vehicle drives, we have the Zelenzyakov, you have the TAM 2IP, you also have the Vixen, and of course the G-Links. All of these are good, you know, none of them really are terrible. The Zelenzyakov will be good for getting some SL and also getting into higher tier premiums for the Soviet naval stuff. Obviously isn't as good as a bunch of the other vehicles around there, especially after some of the BR changes, such as for the Eugen, but it still will be fine at pumping out a ton of damage with those 152s. The TAM 2IP is also in a nice place. Basically, this vehicle has access to DM33 at 9.0, which is very powerful, and also the laser rangefinder and everything else. The only thing it doesn't have is thermals, but it doesn't really need them because of the fact that it can scout and you can use the binos very effectively. That's a very good vehicle, that one. Then also, the Vixen gives you a different playstyle at 8.7, but after the BR changes, with a lot of the guys that you would face going to 8.3 and 8.0, it's probably going to have a bit more of a rough time, since the main thing that it uses is its speed to get high and above the enemies, and then fire the missiles in, and then kind of go back to base. So this one's probably in a bit more of a rough space right now, since they didn't move down any of the British vehicles at 8.3 or 8.7, so yeah, kind of sucks. Then the last one is the G-Links. At 10.3, you have an incredibly competent lineup for the British in ground forces. The Vickers, the Bishma, the Challengers, the Stormer, lol, and then also a few others. And the G-Links can be a nice CAS element with access to some really good secondary weapons in terms of the good old Hellfires, which you can bring along. It also has thermal pods and stingers, so you have pretty much everything that you would want out of this vehicle. So yeah, the optics also are really nice on it with the thermals, and you'll be able to shoot people with the Hellfires from miles away. So definitely worth giving a go at. Now, let's have a look at the rest. You have, obviously, the standard decals that they brought back again, and all of the different talismans. I don't think any of those have changed, so they are all basically the same now. So if you want to pick them up, make sure to do so. They're all still random, so you might get lucky, you might not, and that kind of sucks. The other thing is the vehicles themselves, the premiums, which are here. Most of these premiums are very good. Starting off, we have the M3A3 First PTG. This is the Chinese Rank 2 premium at 2.7. 2.7 is one of those BRs which is incredibly crowded with a lot of very good vehicles, and the Stuart is one of them. It has a stabilizer on the 37, the vertical stab, so you can do a lot of damage with it. It also has access to scouting, since it's a rank 2, and also some smoke grenades so you can reposition with its very good mobility going forward and backwards. It also has access to a pretty decently penning round for a 37mm, and that means that you can fire and then go to different areas. This is actually actually a really nice premium to pick up, and also is a starter pack premium for the Chinese. So if that ever goes on offer, you can pick this up, and also the, I think it's the Warhawk, isn't it? Something like that, which is about. So it's definitely worth giving a go at. It's very similar to the standard M3, the only thing is it has this slightly different hull, which technically gives it more armor, but I mean, we're talking about very small amounts. It's not really going to make a difference, but it's a great vehicle to start your Chinese journey with, which is a bit familiar. The PR123K A11 is a hydrofoil in a way. You can see here it actually boosts itself out of the water to be able to go incredibly fast, and that's exactly what it does. This one has a dual 14.5mm KPV on the back, which does a lot of damage, and also some torpedoes. The torpedoes itself go 7 kilometers, which isn't very far, and they're also not very fast, which is another issue. But the reason why you pick up a vehicle like this is so you can get quick caps, especially at high echelons, and also at low echelons to be able to grind through the coastal tech tree to get to the big bangers at rank 3 and 4 for the Soviets, which, to be honest, there are quite a lot of them. So this thing is really fast, and you can, you know, put your bud at the enemy and shoot them with the KPVs, which is really good. And as long as the high seas aren't too choppy, you can do a lot of damage with this. So survivability is pretty much 0, but it gets its survivability from its mobility, and the guns are nice on it, and you can get a ton of caps with it while whizzing around the place. I actually really like this type of vehicle. I have used the standard one in the tech tree for the longest time, the PR123 BIS, which is right here. The difference between this and the premium one, even though they're the same BR, is this one gets Dishkas, and this one gets KPVs. The KPVs are a lot better than the Dishkas. So yeah, it's a little bit pay to win, but generally very similar. Then you got the Wellington Mark 1C, which is kind of the odd one out. So this used to be a premium back in the day that a lot of people would pick up, and the reason for it is just because it was a simple grinder. You would hit bases, and then that's about it. You have the standard bomb loads, but you don't have any of the extra ones that the Wellington gets. It's got very high SL rewards because of the fact that it gets shot down quite a lot, and generally is just not a bomber which exists for a long time. It's been going down and down in BR over the years because of the fact its survivability is very low, and even with the different turrets, it really doesn't help because they're only 7.7mm. This thing is slow, it's cumbersome, can't defend itself, and has worse bomb loads than a lot of other vehicles around its BR. It really isn't worth it to be able to play. It's actually much better if you want to grind out the tech tree, just to play the standard bombers in the actual tech tree itself. That is, you know, the way to go. Then also, you have the Thunderbolt Mark 1. This is the British P47, and it is a Razorback P47 at 3.7. Now, Britain actually has a really good ground unit at 3.7, Sherman 2, Cromwell's as well alongside of it, and also the Thunderbolt Mark 1 to run with it, which is just fantastic. This vehicle also has access to secondary loadouts now, so you can actually create a really cool loadout, which is just, you know, 2 1000s and 1 500. The vehicle itself, I'm pretty sure, actually drops bombs independently now, so you can get 3 bomb drops off with this thing, even though it can feel a little bit awkward to do it because of the fact that if you drop one of the 1000s, it, you know, obviously tilts quite aggressively. But yeah, so in ground forces and naval forces, it's really nice as a CAS element, and in air forces, well, at the end of the day, it's a Thunderbolt. So it has the very powerful engine, the Pratt & Whitney R2800. It has a ton of guns, the 8 50 cals, 4 in each wing, with a ton of ammunition, and also a bunch of fuel, meaning that you can survive the long time. The problem with stuff like this is actually the fact that a lot of people play it way too aggressively, and what you have to do right now is you have to play it more passively, wait to gain altitude, and then attack from altitude to be able to hit targets. And the problem with that is that doesn't really fit the meta right now. So it's actually better as a cast vehicle than it is an out-and-out fighter, just because of the fact that everybody just smashes in the center. You can do really well as a fighter in the game. It's just you're probably not going to win too much, but you will rack up a lot of kills if you take advantage of the current meta. And with vehicles like this, you can do it all day long. And that's why it's very powerful, and why a lot of Thunderbolts went down in BR, even though they shouldn't have. So this is a really good pick. And also, one of the things about that 3-7 lineup for the British that we talked about, the Cromwells right here, and then also the Sherman, this lineup is rank 2. So if you bring along the Thunderbolt, which is a rank 3 aircraft, that means that you can actually do all of the dailies and specials with the lineup. Same if you run it in naval, with stuff like the Vega, the Grafton, and even the Churchill, if it's still available. You now can actually do dailies with this lineup as long as you click to spawn in the Thunderbolt, which is really cool. So that's a nice little tidbit and something it's able to do. The Tigra, or the Tiger, or however you want to call it. This is a Leon-class destroyer, and it's bad. I don't know how else to put it, but it's just not good. It has 4 dual-mounted 120mm, which sounds really nice, right? Because of the fact that it's got quite a lot of firepower. These turrets have terrible firing angles, meaning that you have to expose a lot of your silhouettes in order to get all of the turrets on target. You need to basically be like this, and even then you can see that back turret has the boat in the way, so you have to be like this to be able to get all of them on targets. And this one has a terrible firing angle. The back one also has a really bad firing angle, so even though you may think, oh, 8 120s, that's pretty good for 4-3, no, it isn't. Especially since you have so many really good machines at 4-7 and 5-0, this thing just gets torn up. It doesn't have any armor, and its survivability is incredibly low, especially since you have a bunch of ammo racks everywhere for guns that you hardly use. And also, the 120mm have a terrible fire rate compared to pretty much everything you'll fight at 4-7 and also 5-0. The other thing is, the guns themselves hardly do any damage, only 2.39 kilos on the HE, and then 1.16 on the good old APHE. That is, I think, 3 times less than the French vehicles at the same BR, which is just nuts, and also terrible reload rate. The supposed advantage of a vehicle like this is its speed, but as a person who's played a lot of naval, that doesn't work. So the fact is, they will just range you and you will die. It does have some nice camos, but so do all the Italian vehicles. The secondary armament is 2 76s and then 2 40mm and some good old torpedoes. So these 76s and these 40s are really not very good either. They don't have a good range, and they just don't really do anything. The actual torpedoes themselves are a lot worse than the competition too. So please don't buy this, is basically what I'm saying, or please don't get this in the Warbond shop. Even if you want to grind out the Italian Navy, this is not the way to go. If you want to understand how bad this machine is, you can actually grind out the Italian naval forces and get to the Leon, because this is also a Leon class, and they're basically the same. And it's really not that hard to get to this vehicle, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's in a very, very rough position and not fun at all. There are much better vehicles in the Italian tech tree, usually around 5.3 and also 5.0, which are worth going for, instead of the lower tier destroyers, which are some of the worst in the game. Then you have the T-14. So the T-14 is a chunky Sherman. This used to be pretty broken. After the volumetric shell changes, they were very, very good because of the fact that they had this like spaced armor layer, which would stop a lot of shells coming in, and a lot of just weird, wonky areas where you could stop shells. And right now, when it comes to the vehicle itself, that obviously isn't the case, because it got up-BR'd and also just doesn't have really a lineup anymore. The vehicle itself still is good in a down tier and still okay at its tier, but they kind of moved everything else around it, so it doesn't have a like area to actually play. Like, if you have a look at the US tech tree at 4.7, for example, which is where this thing finds itself, you know, it's at rank 3, by the way, which is quite nice, so you can do dailies and specials. But if you have a look, okay, so you have the M42 and M19, and that's it. That's all you get. I suppose if you have the T55 from the Battle Pass, or, you know, maybe the Calliope, but even them, they're, you know, a few BRs different. And since this T14, the idea of it is to rely on its armor, because its gun is only a 75mm M3, you're supposed to be able to play it at its BR, and usually in a down tier. So the vehicle just doesn't have any semblance of a lineup, apart from maybe a plane. It does get the M61 shot, which is nice. It does, you know, have the smoke grenades, which is pretty cool, but it just doesn't have any usability, because if you die in it, you're pretty much done. And there are much better premiums that are available for America at around these BRs. Now remember, when it comes to the game, there's going to be sales for War Thunder probably at the end of this month or the start of the next one, and you'll be able to pick up something like a T14 for a much better state, such as for the Black Cat or the Cobra King, for basically the same price. So the fact that you can grind it out in the Battle Pass is not going to be that useful. So out of the actual vehicles themselves, right? The M3A3, fantastic pick, really fun, and will do you well for a long time at rank 2 China. PR123K, fantastic too. Thunderbolt, a amazing pick, but the Wellington, not as good. T14 and the Tigra are also in rough places. So if I was going to rank these, the first one would be the M3A3 first PTG, second would be the Thunderbolt, third, the 123K, fourth would be the Wellington, fifth, the T14, and sixth, unfortunately, the Tigra. A rough position as always. Hopefully you guys enjoy this Battle Pass. The challenges themselves aren't too bad, so I'll probably make a video on them at some point, but understand many of them are just like, play the game and get the stuff done, and the Battle Pass itself is looking pretty good. So look after yourselves, peace be with you as always, and I hope you have a wonderful day. And I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Tullio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pieman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Alan Hacker, Ozzy Panzer, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Cam Arslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.